Goku's energy had been completely drained. He was so weak that he could barely keep his eyes open. His body had become so thin it looked as if he hadn't eaten in months. Then Goku thought to himself, "At this rate, I'm going to die. What kind of place is this? It's draining my power at an unbelievable speed. Dad, Vegeta, Gohan, Piccolo, you're the only ones left who can protect Universe 7 now." Just then, a mysterious voice echoed through the walls of the palace. "Don't worry, child. You will never die here. You will remain alive and endure this pain forever." Goku looked around desperately and shouted, "Whoever you are, get me out of here. Please, help me." Then, with all the strength he had left, Goku screamed at the top of his lungs, "Please, get me out of here. Whoever you are, I don't want to be trapped in this place." The mysterious voice answered calmly, "Since you insist on knowing the truth, I'll tell you. You can never escape this place on your own, child. The only way out is if someone from the outside comes to retrieve you. Someone who possesses an ancient power, or a god, or an angel." Goku thought to himself, "So, this is where I'm going to die." Summoning every last ounce of strength left in his body, Goku attempted to use the instant transmission technique he had learned from the people of planet Yardrat. But Whis, Bardock, and Vegeta couldn't sense Goku's energy at all. Then, all of a sudden, Gohan's heart skipped a beat. A chill ran down his spine, and goosebumps covered his entire body. Gohan, wait. That was Dad's energy. I'm sure of it. It was incredibly faint, but I felt it. A moment later, Goku's energy vanished once again, and Gohan couldn't sense it anymore. Gohan thought to himself, "Dad is alive, I'm sure of it. But he's not here. No matter what it takes, I have to find him." Without wasting another second, Gohan started moving toward the castle's exit, determined to begin his search for his father. The moment he entered deeper into the castle, the first thing Gohan saw was another gigantic door, a door completely different from the previous one. It was shaped like a gigantic mouth filled with twisted white teeth. Behind it shone a blood-red moon, dripping crimson as if it were smiling, eager to devour him. And then he realized it was the source of all his nightmares. Gohan froze in place. Terror screamed through his veins, and for the first time, the voices around him whispered with horrifying clarity, "Enter, for here begins the true trial." The moment he stepped inside, silence filled the entire place. Gohan moved forward cautiously through a dark chamber. The faint light from shattered torches barely cast his shadow across the stone walls. The massive mouth behind him had closed shut, and now he knew there was no way back. He had entered alone, searching for the source of the mysterious energy he had sensed here. But he didn't know he had just crossed through a gate from which no one had ever returned. Suddenly, the atmosphere changed. The air grew heavier, as if something was watching him. Endless rows of gigantic statues stood before him, some holding swords, others carrying spears, and still others staring at him with cold stone eyes. At the far end of the hall sat an enormous statue on a throne of shadows. Its face was a horrifying blend of skulls and terror. Gohan took a step forward. Words carved on the wall before him suddenly ignited with an eerie glow the moment he touched them. He hesitated and looked around. No sound, no movement. Then something whispered to him, "These are not words. This is awakening." And then something happened he could never have imagined. The eye of the statue seated on the throne opened. Cold red eyes locked directly on him. At that instant, the air froze. Gohan's heart stopped for a second. Then he heard heavy footsteps. One statue from the left row began to move, then another, then another. Soon, the entire hall echoed with the grinding sound of moving marble and the merciless clash of stone and metal. Gohan stepped back, trying to understand what was happening. But the first strike came quickly. A stone spear slammed into the ground in front of him, shaking the entire chamber like an earthquake. He turned and ran. Every step echoed with the breath of death pursuing him from behind. The statues moved slowly, yet they never stopped. Anyone seeing them for the first time would think they were sluggish, but they always drew closer. Gohan gathered his strength and began fighting the statues with everything he had. "Stop!" he shouted. "I'm not prey. I won't surrender to you. If you think I'm just an ordinary fighter, you've chosen the wrong person." But the strangest part was that the giant statues restored themselves every time they were destroyed. The battle was completely pointless. Gohan stumbled and fell. He looked behind him, just in time to see a statue raising an enormous stone sword high above its head. He screamed and leaped to the side at the last second. The sword slammed into the ground, splitting the floor and shaking the entire place like an earthquake. Blood began pouring from his arm. He had lost one of his limbs. Gohan spoke through gritted teeth. "My strength isn't enough, but I won't back down. Father, show me the way. Show me the strength. Even if I die here, I'll fight until my very last breath." Lying on the ground, Gohan struggled back to his feet. He no longer felt pain, only pure fear remained. He shouted at the top of his lungs, "You who sit upon that throne, if you can hear me, stop this. I know you're the king of this place." Suddenly, the statues stopped. Every one of them froze, as if obeying a command. They stepped back and turned to stone once more. Gohan slowly raised his head and saw the giant being seated on the throne lower its own head toward him, almost as if it were smiling. Then he heard the echo of a strange voice inside his mind. It wasn't a normal voice. It was a terrifying, broken whisper. "Prove that you are worthy of this power." The statues began moving again, but this time more slowly, as if they were watching. Gohan looked toward the giant being and spoke in a hoarse voice. "I want to become stronger. My father is waiting for me. Can you make me more powerful? Or are you just another statue like the rest?" Darkness swallowed the hall. Then silence reigned. It lasted so long it felt like an eternity. When Gohan turned around and opened his eyes again, his body was covered in blood, yet he felt nothing. Before him, floating in the air, appeared a window of crimson light shining through the darkness. A message appeared within it. "You have been chosen as the first bearer of the king's instinct. Prove that you deserve it, or this purse will kill you." Every statue froze in place. Gohan stared at his trembling hand. Something inside his heart was beginning to change. Then he heard the roar of a gigantic beast behind him. "Welcome." Before he could react, the creature grabbed him with one massive hand and mercilessly tore out his heart. But the real shock came next. It replaced his heart with a crystal of black stone. The moment the procedure was complete, it threw him back onto the ground. The moon was no longer the same. It had transformed into a gigantic crimson orb radiating a bloody light that covered the entire earth.
The sky cracked. The air grew suffocating. Cities trembled under the pressure. The oceans began to boil as if they were seething in rage. Krillin, Trunks, Goten, and Piccolo all turned their eyes toward the east. The light was coming from there, from Gohan's house. Goten cried out, tears streaming down his face. "That light is coming from my brother Gohan's house. Brother, please don't die. Please be alive." Trunks grabbed him by the arm. His face was pale with fear. In a trembling voice, he said, "We have to go and see what's happening. Come on, Goten. Our father and mine aren't here, and this energy isn't normal. It's tearing planet Earth apart. We have to fight like men now."
On the other side, Krillin clenched her fist and screamed, "Damn it! What is this disaster? I have never seen the planet in this kind of state." Piccolo said with astonishment, "This is impossible. This energy, I can sense a feeling I know all too well coming from it." In space, neighboring planets were trembling. Even in other worlds he had felt it. What happened to the moon? Why has it turned red? "Run! Don't look back! A shockwave is heading our way." As for Zardock, he had been roaming the earth and had reached distant mountains. His eyes gleamed with an ancient glow of madness and majesty. He raised his head toward the light, then smiled slowly, a smile that carried a mix of pride and terror, and spoke in a voice as deep as thunder. "Finally, my heir has awakened, the heir of the new bloodline." And then he burst into laughter, a laugh that rang across the sky, a laugh that tore the clouds around him. He continued saying, "I think I can't wait to test his strength. Ah, how long has it been since my last battle?" And at the heart of that light, Gohan was rising from the ashes. His body radiated a white, regal glow. His hair was no longer black. It was white, blazing, dripping with a royal light. His eyes carried a brilliance like a clear, open sky. The air around him was completely still. No sound, except for a single pulse that shook the earth with every breath he took. He took one step forward. The ground shattered beneath him without him even noticing. All of nature had come to a stop. Gohan, ultra-royal instant, the form that has been recorded in no era, the form that can only be achieved by one who has united with Zardock and passed the trial of the gate of transformation. Gohan stood upright, head raised toward the red moon, and spoke in a voice that was faint, yet somehow crossed the entire universe. "What is this energy? Am I actually alive, or was all of this just a nightmare?" Then he slowly raised his hand and began gathering a terrifying energy in his palm to test his new strength. It was a blindingly bright energy. He launched it immediately in front of him, and it shot out at an incredible speed, off the earth, toward an infinite distance, as if it would never stop. Gohan spoke with a smile of determination on his face. "So it's real. I can feel it." His smile faded, and he continued, "But this place has left nothing in my heart but fear, and I can sense that it has planted something dark inside me." When Trunks and Goten arrived, they met up with Krillin and Piccolo and found that Teen, Yamcha, and Chiaotzu had already reached the source of the light before them. Their faces were filled with shock. The earth was still trembling beneath their feet, and the sky was blanketed in a thick red light that made everything look like a raging inferno. The place where Gohan's house once existed no longer existed. No walls, no trees that used to surround the home, only a deep crater
from which waves of energy pulsed outward like the heartbeat of a dying planet. Goten stepped forward on unsteady legs, his eyes flooded with tears. "No, this can't be. This was my brother's home. Where is he?" He ran toward the center, but Krillin grabbed him firmly by the arm and shouted, "Stop, Goten! Don't go near it! That energy, it's terrifying! It'll kill you before you even reach it!"
The winds swirled violently around them, and dust rose high into the air, until there, in the middle of the ruins, Gohan appeared. But no one recognized him. His hair had turned a blazing white, dripping with royal light. His body glowed as if it were made of pure energy, and his eyes burned with a brilliance that was still somehow human. He stood completely still, silent. Beneath him, the ground was fractured, and around it swirled a vortex of gravel and dust. And Yamcha trembled, saying in a shaken voice, "Is that really Gohan?" Trunks murmured in disbelief, "No, this is something else entirely. His energy surpasses even my father's." Chaozu stepped back, whispering in fear, "I can't even breathe. It's like the air itself is running away from this place." At that moment, Gohan raised his head toward the red moon, his eyes blazing like a sky announcing catastrophe. "What I'm seeing is real. Is that my little brother? And my friends? Why can't I bring myself to say anything? Why are they looking at me like that?" In the mountains, Zardock vanished without warning, leaving behind a violent shockwave that tore through the ground. In an instant, he appeared directly behind Gohan without making a single sound. Even the wind hadn't caught his movement. He raised his hand calmly, then spoke in a deep voice filled with majesty. "Finally, my heir has awakened." Everyone froze. Krillin whispered in a shaken voice, "His heir? What is he talking about? Wait, who even is this giant?" But before anyone could speak, Zardock vanished in a single second and reappeared in front of Gohan without making a single sound. Even the wind hadn't caught his movement. He raised his hand calmly, then spoke in a deep voice filled with majesty. "Show me my heir. Do you truly deserve this blood?" Gohan spun around with lightning speed, his eyes blazing with a celestial light, and said with an arrogant smile, "So it's you." He unleashed a wave of white energy that exploded through the sky, sending Zardock crashing upward like a meteor, shattering the clouds. Trunks screamed, shielding his face from the light. "Impossible! I didn't even see what just happened." Goten howled, "Big brother, stop!" But Gohan wasn't hearing anyone. Zardock reappeared before him in an instant and struck him with a punch that cracked the earth for hundreds of meters. Dust flew, boulders shattered. Everyone was stunned by what they were witnessing. Gohan blocked the blow with his forehead, smiling a sly smile. But there was something strange that made everyone's heart stop. It was the destruction Zardock had caused behind Gohan. Piccolo said, No, this is impossible. What is happening here?" Piccolo's reaction seemed excessive, but he was the only one who had seen it. Zardock hadn't even tried to hit Gohan's face. Piccolo said with horror, "Look, the punch never even touched his face and it caused all of that." Zardock said with arrogance, "I love it. The wind from my fist didn't even move you. I haven't seen anyone stop that in a very long time." Gohan responded without the slightest trace of fear. "The next time, don't hold back. Or is that really all you've got? That glow inside you was never supposed to exist. The Blood King must have seen something truly special in you. What did he see in me? Wasn't this supposed to happen? It's not what I saw, but those who try to awaken, they planted a complete diamond inside you, and that has never happened before." After Zardock withdrew his hand, blood began to pour from Gohan's forehead, but the arrogant smile never left his face.
Then Gohan answered with an incredible strike that pushed Zardock back for the very first time. The scene was majestic, white light against blood-red light. Every collision between their fists created a vortex of energy that shook the sky. Trunks and Yamcha cried out in stunned disbelief. "Oh my God! I have never seen a fight like this in my entire life. Every single punch is causing an earthquake." Time froze for a moment when their fists met. The air stopped. The dust hung suspended in place, and the seas around the planet rippled under the force of their energy. Then Zardock stepped back, one single step, smiling with a mysterious pride. "Incredible. You have surpassed the limits of Ultra Instinct. I think you are the strongest Saiyan in the world right now, but certainly not stronger than me." He looked up at the red moon and said in a deep voice, "Now I understand why the door chose you. Something sets you apart, boy." Gohan was panting. His breath burned with the intensity of the battle, but he remained unshaken. "Is the trial over?" Zardock smiled with malice and said, "Well, I have bad news and good news. While you were inside the door of punishment, I searched for your father's power through the drops of your blood that remained on my hand. I searched through every world, every galaxy, and I did not find him. But the good news is that I found a half-destroyed planet near Earth. I sensed different powers there, as if a war had passed through just hours ago. On its surface, I found glyphs, the kind used in one of the worst forms of torture. Glyphs indicating that someone was sent to the Dark Castle, and the greatest probability is that it was your father, and that he is also the one who woke me from my sleep. But that place is dangerous for any creature that has never visited it." Hope returned to Gohan's face. His eyes lit up again after a long silence, and he spoke in a voice filled with determination and joy. "If there is any hope that leads me to my father, I will hold on to it." "Very well. Let's go." Zardock smiled and said, "Remember, you are the one who wants this. Bear your responsibility, heir of royal blood." "I'm ready." Then Gohan added, "But let me first check on my friends. They must be very worried." Zardock nodded silently in agreement, and Gohan's body vanished in a faint light that cracked the ground beneath him before carrying him to his friends. Gohan appeared near them. Everyone was there, their faces filled with shock and fear. They did not recognize the strange figure standing before them, dressed in clothing that radiated royal energy. Goten was the first to spot him, running toward him and shouting, "Gohan!" Krillin cried out, "Stop! Don't go near him, Gohan! That's not—" But before he could finish, Gohan had already pulled Goten into his arms, and tears were streaming down Goten's face. "Big brother, I knew it was you! I knew it! I thought you were dead! I couldn't find the house! I couldn't find anyone!" Gohan placed his hand gently on his head and said with a warm smile, "I'm fine, Goten. I've been through a lot, but I wasn't going to leave without saying goodbye to you all." Piccolo stepped forward cautiously, still unable to believe what he was seeing. "Gohan, is it really you?" Gohan replied with a deep look and a voice full of gratitude. "Yes, Master Piccolo. Without you, I wouldn't be standing here today. Thank you for always being my second father." Piccolo went quiet for a moment, tears beginning to form in his eyes, before he turned his head away and said in a low voice, "Take care of yourself, boy. This battle is bigger than all of us. Your father and Vegeta have already fallen. I hope you come back alive." Trunks stepped in with worry in his voice. "Gohan, my father disappeared too. Do you think he's still alive?" Gohan smiled with rare confidence and firmly said, "Yes, I will bring back my father and Vegeta. I won't leave anyone behind." Krillin exhaled a sigh of relief mixed with dread and said, I don't know what you've become, Gohan, but your appearance shook the entire world. Gohan looked at everyone, his eyes glowing with a royal blue light, and spoke in a strong voice that everyone could hear. I'm leaving now. I will find them. I will bring them back, and I will put an end to this curse once and for all. Don't worry about me. Then he turned toward the base of the mountain where Zardock was waiting. Zardock raised his hands. Dark symbols appeared in the air, spinning like a mysterious whirlpool. He spoke in a majestic voice. Prepare yourself. The journey to the Dark Castle is no place for the weak. The ground began to shake. The air turned into a thick black fog that swallowed everything. Goten cried out, "Big brother, don't go!" But Gohan turned to him with a calm smile and said, I will come back, I promise you. In an instant, his body was swallowed by the black smoke. He vanished alongside Zardock in a swirl of light and shadow, leaving his friends standing behind him in complete silence, their hearts torn between hope and fear. The two disappeared from Earth and reappeared in an instant before the Dark Castle, a massive palace. The air around it howled under an unnatural pressure. The moment he arrived, Gohan dropped straight to his knees, clutching his chest as blood began to pour from his nose and mouth. He cried out in confusion, "What is this place? It feels like my body is being torn apart." Zardock replied in a cold, heavy voice, I told you, this place obeys no law, no energy level. It is a world beyond all logic. I warned you that your body might not be able to withstand the blood pressure of this dimension.
Zardock stopped in front of the palace gate and said, I am going in now. I will return quickly, but do not let your eyes close. If you lose consciousness, the castle will pull you inside, and then it will be impossible for me to get your father out, or you either. Gohan tried to resist, but his body trembled violently as the pressure continued to rise. He heard Zardock's footsteps fade toward the palace, and then everything went silent. As Zardock moved toward the palace, his face carried an expression of dread and tension even for the founder of the Saiyans. All that power meant nothing in this place. He reached the castle, pushed open the door, and stepped into the worst nightmare of his life. All right, I'm ready. Let's finish this. Whatever is waiting for me, it all ends tonight. Zardock stepped inside and immediately saw Goku's condition. He looked absolutely devastated. At that moment, a mysterious voice echoed through the castle. So, you've come to take him. I never expected that to happen. Zardock ignored the voice completely and continued searching for Goku. The voice spoke again. The one you're looking for, I know it's your own blood. Zardock shouted, Silence! Unless you want to face the consequences, keep your mouth shut. A moment later, Zardock looked down. There, lying on the cold stone floor, was Goku in terrible condition. His body was covered in wounds, and he barely looked alive. Without saying a word, Zardock picked up Goku in his arms and started walking toward the exit. Suddenly, the massive castle doors slammed shut. The eerie voice echoed through the walls once again. If you want to take him with you, you'll have to give me something in return, Zardock. Zardock replied without hesitation, Take whatever you want. Just get out of my way. The voice chuckled. Saiyans are known for the incredible strength of their arms, so I'll take one of yours forever. I know you're an ancient warrior. You'll regenerate it eventually. But from this moment on, whenever you need that arm the most, it will disappear again and again. Zardock didn't hesitate for even a second. Fine. Now move aside. Then, suddenly, the door swung back open with the groan of ancient iron. Zardock stepped out,
carrying a thin, frail body over his shoulder, twisted, with the bones of the chest visible through the skin, flesh clinging to him as though he hadn't eaten in months or years, with marks of torture covering his entire body. "Return to your home, warrior Kakarot." The words drifted through the dark castle like smoke, and Gohan struggled to open his eyes against the weight pressing down on them. A weak voice escaped his lips, barely louder than a breath, every syllable of fight. "Dad, is that you? What did they do to you?" His vision swam, shapes bent and blurred in the crimson gloom, and through the haze he made out the towering figure standing over him. He looked at Zardock and asked, the question tumbling out of him before he could understand what he was seeing. "Your hand, where did it go?" Zardock stood beside him, calm as stone, and tossed Goku's body aside without a flicker of feeling, a queen showing absolutely no compassion, discarding a piece that had served its purpose. The body landed in the dust, limp and broken, and Gohan flinched as though the impact had struck his own chest. "I made a pact with the castle guardians," Zardock said, his voice flat, unbothered, the voice of someone reciting a transaction. "They took my hand in exchange for handing Goku over to me. Fighting them is useless. They aren't creatures, they are the very laws of this place. I warned you that your body might not handle the blood pressure of this dimension. I did all of this because he woke me from my slumber. I hope I don't regret it." Zardock lowered his gaze to the ragged stump where his arm had been severed. He studied it the way a man studies a debt already paid. Then the air around him began to stir. Fire gathered out of nothing, pulling itself together from the heat of the dimension itself. Threads of flame winding and merging and shaping into the curl of fingers, the line of a wrist, until his hand was completely recreated, glowing faintly with molten light before it cooled into something that looked almost real.
"This hand is formed from volcanic blood energy," he said in a low voice, flexing the new fingers, watching them respond. "But it doesn't have the strength of the original." Gohan tried to stand. His legs trembled beneath him, refusing the command, and he pitched sideways, losing his balance before he had even risen. The strength was draining out of him faster than he could gather it. His eyes began to close. Darkness crept inward from the edges of his sight, swallowing the red gloom of the castle, swallowing Zardock's silhouette, swallowing everything. Can't. Then he collapsed. Zardock looked down at the two of them, the dying father and the unconscious son, and sighed deeply, a long breath that carried something almost like weariness. He said, before he disappeared, "You've resisted long enough, boy. We won't stay here a second longer. This place devours the living." And in an instant, using Zardock's power, they vanished from the dark castle and returned to Earth. Elsewhere, in a world unlike any other, its sky shattered like golden green glass, its land casting no shadows beneath a light that came from nowhere, Zeno stood calmly before the Grand Minister, the Daishin Khan, surrounded by a gathering of angels and only 3 surviving gods of destruction, the Hakashins. Among them were Beerus, Belmod, and Rumshi. The atmosphere was suffocating, as if the air itself was afraid to move, afraid that the smallest disturbance might draw attention it could not survive. Behind them stood the prisoners, captured by the Grand Minister's power and trapped inside a magical cube that drained their strength with every passing second. They pressed their hands against its invisible walls and felt nothing but the slow theft of their own energy. Everyone exchanged looks filled with confusion, glances darting from face to face, searching for some explanation in another's eyes. Except for one person. The Grand Minister stood behind Zeno with a faint smile on his face. It was the smile of someone who knows perfectly well why they have come to this unknown world, but is content to wait,
to hold his silence until the words are spoken aloud by another's mouth. Zeno took a step forward. His voice was low, but it cut through the heavy air like a blade drawn across silk. "Do you know why we are here?" No one answered. Even the angels saw their own inner light contract with anxiety, dimming as though the question itself had pressed upon them. One of them gathered the courage to speak, and even that small sound seemed an intrusion. "What do you mean, Lord Zeno?" Zeno raised his head, and when he spoke again, it was as if thunder itself had found a voice. "We have come to wake my father from his slumber." Beerus's breathing quickened, the air catching in his throat. One of the angels trembled where he stood. Zeno continued, and this time his shining eyes reflected something none of them had ever seen in him before: genuine fear, real and undisguised, because his father was the only one capable of stopping Zardock. At that exact moment, the Grand Minister's smile vanished. It was replaced by a long silence, deep and unbroken, as if even his heart had stopped beating for a second. The Grand Minister and Zeno arrived in the frozen world, a world where no living creature sets foot, where the cold itself is a kind of sovereign. There lay the body of Zeno's father, resting in a slumber that had lasted for centuries inside an immense palace, every surface petrified by eternal ice. From afar, the scene was terrifying. A deadly silence stretched across the white expanse, and a coldness that did not merely touch the skin, but pierce the very soul. The Grand Minister raised his hand and gave a firm order. "Beerus, Belmod, Rumshi, you will stay here. If Zardock or anyone else appears, stop them with all your might."
He knew that Zardock was still free, somewhere out in the dark between worlds, and that his arrival in this place could mean the end for everyone gathered here. Beerus, Belmod, and Rumshi, accompanied by 1,000 angels, would form the final line of defense. Not to win, the Grand Minister understood that much, but solely to delay Zardock should he ever track them down. As for the Grand Minister and Zeno, they were accompanied by 700,000 angels, a host so vast it dimmed the frozen horizon. Along with 3 prisoners, Whis, Vegeta, and Bardock, they advanced toward the Ice Palace to awaken the being who could either help them or annihilate them, Zeno's father. An arrival into the unknown. Before them stood a gigantic door, larger than any structure in the cosmos, its surface lost in the rising mist. The Grand Minister opened it, and it parted with a groan that rolled out across the frozen plain, like the waking of something old. He stepped through, followed by the angels in their endless ranks, while Zeno watched from a distance, unmoving. Then they all entered. The Ice Palace resembled a colossal creature sculpted out of crystal. Its walls were as transparent as glass, and the air inside was not merely freezing, it felt suffocating, as if it were draining the warmth from their souls rather than their bodies. Even the angels, who were normally incapable of feeling fear, drew closer to one another, the distance between them shrinking without any of them deciding to move. In this place, the dominant feeling was sheer terror, and it belonged to no single thing they could name. And then came the shock. What on earth is that thing? A voice cracked the silence, and others answered it with the same dread. I don't know, but it's terrifying.
At the heart of the massive frozen hall stood 2 frozen statues. The first was a woman with a serene face of striking beauty, surrounded by ice as if she were merely sleeping in the snow, untouched by the centuries. The stillness of her features held a peace that did not belong in a place like this. The second was no ordinary being. Imposing, seated upon a gigantic throne, his form was nothing but a frozen silhouette, the details lost beneath the layers of ice, highly indistinct. Yet his mere presence took the angels' breath away. Some trembled openly, others froze in utter terror, unable even to look away. The Grand Minister understood immediately that what awaited them was not simply the awakening of a sleeping being, but the opening of a door to a power that no one here had ever witnessed, and perhaps no one was meant to. "I feel a horrible energy," one angel whispered, "something that freezes the blood. He is immense." As for Zeno, he smiled, looking up at his father with a mixture of nostalgia and fear. The two emotions wound so tightly together that they could not be separated. On planet Earth, Gohan and Zardock returned from the Dark Castle. The moment they appeared, the air itself regained its reddish hue, stained by the sheer pressure of Gohan's power radiating off him in waves he could not fully control. Goku lay in Gohan's arms, his body fragile, near death, completely devoid of strength or spirit. His head lolled against his son's chest, and there was nothing of a warrior left in him, only the husk of one. Zardock looked at Gohan and said sternly, leaving no room for hope, "I told you, neither the Dragon Balls will work, nor can my power heal him. His body has endured something that defies the very laws of the cosmos." Gohan didn't waste another second. He had no time for despair, no time for the words pressing against his throat. Carrying his father, he rushed toward Bulma's lab at maximum speed, tearing across the sky in a streak of light. He burst through the door, and everyone inside froze in horror at the sight of Goku's condition. The broken body, the gray pallor, the breath so shallow it could barely be seen. "Please, don't lose consciousness. Don't leave me alone like this. I'm so sorry I was late." Bulma trembled, her hands shaking, but she hit the emergency button without hesitation. A chamber opened with a hiss of pressure, a capsule resembling a vessel filled with clear water. She placed Goku inside, and the advanced machinery began to scan him with precision, lights running across his body, flickering readings faster than the eye could follow. This was her latest invention, designed to accelerate healing far beyond anything she had built before. Zardock stood near Bulma, and she found herself shaking before the sheer scale of the being beside her, the weight of his presence, the heat that came off him like a furnace. "You're shaking?" he said. "Are you afraid?" "No, this just isn't your place." "Answer me. Are you afraid of me?" A pause. The truth came out small. "Yes, I am." "Good. Now listen closely." He raised his hand, and from his palm he produced two small spheres, one red, the other white, each turning slowly in the air above his fingers, as if alive with their own quiet motion. What are you doing?" she asked. He spoke in a low, deep voice, the words measured and final. "Listen closely. When Goku wakes up, make sure he takes these two spheres. The red one contains a collection of my own red blood cells. It will allow him to teleport to me no matter where I am. The white one is royal armor. I wore it when I was a governor centuries ago, but it no longer serves me. He deserves it more than I do. It will grant him pure, additional power from the Saiyan lineage." Bulma stared at the spheres in astonishment, completely bewildered, her mind racing to understand what she was being handed. "Take them. They are alive. Take them before I choose someone else." "Okay, just please don't hurt me." Trembling, she reached out and took them into her hands, and her breath caught. "Wow, I can actually feel their texture." Beneath her fingers, the spheres pulsed faintly,
warm and somehow breathing, like small hearts cupped in her palms. Zardock and Gohan stepped outside the lab to a secluded spot where no one could hear them. Zardock spoke. "I have searched for Zeno and his followers. I found no trace of them in any world. I believe they have gone to the world of Verde, the very place where my eternal rival rests in his slumber." Gohan stepped closer, anxious, the word catching at him. "Your eternal rival?" Zardock smiled, and it was a grin heavy with terrifying memories, the kind that do not fade with the centuries. "Yes, he and I fought a battle that destroyed 5 dimensions belonging to Zeno's brothers. For punishment for the chaos we caused, we were frozen for centuries. But it seems history is repeating itself. We will meet again." He gave Gohan no time to reply. Raising his hand, a white and purple energy enveloped him, crackling around his form. He looked at Gohan. "Let's go. We still have a long way to travel." Gohan stood beside him, glancing back once last in the exact direction of the lab where his father lay, suspended in the healing water. "I'll be back, Dad, no matter what it takes." In an instant, a cosmic flash erupted, swallowing Gohan and Zardock whole. They vanished completely, traveling across eras like 2 sparks tearing through the darkness of the universes, hurtling toward the world of golden green glass. Meanwhile, inside the ice palace, utter astonishment gripped everyone. No one dared to approach the 2 frozen statues. The silence was so total that the smallest sound, a breath, a shift of weight, seemed an act of trespass. Only the Grand Minister advanced, with calm steps, moving toward a pool of water at the center of the hall. The angels parted before him without a word. He dipped his hand into the pool. The pool trembled at his touch, rings spreading outward across its surface, and he drew out a small frozen crystal that caught the dim light and held it. The instant the crystal left the water, the pool dried up completely, the liquid vanishing as though it had never been there, and the entire palace began to slowly melt. A low groan ran through the walls. At that exact moment, the statue of the woman began to disintegrate from the top down, the particles of ice falling away from her like stardust, drifting and glittering as they descended through the cold air. Until a woman of extraordinary beauty, with cold and serene features, emerged from within the ice. Her eyes sparkled like shards of celestial glass, catching a light that came from somewhere beyond the hall. Everyone stopped breathing at once. The Grand Minister and Zeno smiled faintly, as if they knew her perfectly well, as if her waking was a thing long anticipated. Then the Grand Minister said, "Allow me to introduce my sister, Illyra, guardian of Zeno's father." She opened her eyes slowly, the centuries falling away from her, looked at them all in turn, and spoke in a gentle voice that nonetheless carried a deadly threat coiled within it.
"I see. You have awakened me, little brother. And with all due respect to ruler Zeno, you know the consequences of entering this place. Unless, of course, your presence concerns either my lord or Zardock." She sighed softly, the sound almost tender, then waved her hand toward them as one might brush away an inconvenience. "Get out of my way." The angels retreated immediately, falling back and standing at rigid attention. Some found their feet completely frozen to the floor as she passed, the ice climbing up from the ground to seize them where they stood. Others felt sweat pouring down their foreheads despite the freezing cold of the hall.
My legs, they're frozen. They won't move. I can't breathe. I've never felt a presence like this in my life. She's coming toward us." As for the Grand Minister, he smiled confidently, as though he knew exactly what was about to happen, as though he had foreseen each step of it. He released Whis and Vegeta from their chains, the bindings falling away. Bardock, however, he left bound by the celestial ring, as if he knew his sister Illyra wanted to test her strength after centuries of slumber, and intended to give her the opportunity. Everyone watched her every step as she walked among them. One step, and the ground froze beneath her foot, the frost spreading outward in a pale ring. Another step, and the air itself trembled, the cold deepening until it became a weight upon the chest. The moment Vegeta was freed, he rolled his shoulders and scoffed sarcastically, the chains barely fallen from his wrists. "Finally, I'm free. God, I'd love to kill every single one of you. Seriously, you kept me prisoner all this time just to fight a woman? What a joke." He charged at her at lightning speed, closing the distance in a blink, and threw a powerful punch straight into her chest. Her body shattered at the impact, breaking apart as if she were nothing but an ordinary ice statue, fragments scattering across the floor.
Vegeta laughed, drawing breath to gloat. "All that aura, and in the end you're nothing but a pile of... ugh!" Suddenly, time froze. Everyone's movement stopped completely. The angels, Zeno, Whis, even the echo of Vegeta's own voice froze dead in the air, hanging there unfinished. The world held its breath, locked in a single motionless instant. In that frozen moment, Illyra appeared directly in front of him, whole and unbroken, the shattered ice meaning nothing at all. She slowly plunged her hand into his chest, pressing through it with terrible patience, without him being able to move or even blink, his body a prisoner of the stopped time. Then time suddenly snapped back into motion, and Vegeta instantly transformed into a perfect ice statue, his face frozen in an expression of pure terror, caught forever in the half-second of understanding. Absolute silence dominated the palace. No one understood what had just happened. All they knew was that they hadn't seen a single movement, that one moment Vegeta had been laughing, and the next he was ice. Illyra advanced with calm steps and stopped in front of Whis, who was smiling faintly, the expression stretched thin to hide his genuine terror. She gave him a freezing glare, then raised her hand and gently touched his cheek, almost a caress. She spoke in a whisper that sounded like a frozen breath drawn across the back of the neck. "Your face is beautiful, but I sense the scent of an ancient betrayal on you. How can you stand alongside these Saiyans?" As her touch lingered against his skin, Whis' eyes began to roll back, the light dimming in them, as if his very life force were being drawn out of his body through the point of contact. But suddenly, "Stop."
She turned around slowly to find the Grand Minister standing behind her, his eyes serious for the first time, the confidence gone from them. He spoke in a firm voice that left no room for argument. "He is my son. There is no need to take his life." Illyra smiled faintly, a gentle mockery curling at the edge of her mouth. I know. It's Whis. I always adored him when he was little." Her hand fell away from his cheek, and Whis sagged, the light returning slowly to his eyes. Before she could continue, the entire palace shook. The tremor ran up through the floor and into the walls, and everyone felt the terror of it before they understood its source. Even Illyra raised her head, and she smiled. He really came. A few moments earlier, outside the palace, in an immense courtyard of golden green glass floating in the emptiness of space, 1,000 angels and 3 gods of destruction were lined up in a defensive formation, weapons ready, the long ranks stretching across the glowing expanse. Suddenly, a gigantic light fell from the sky. The golden glass vibrated beneath their feet, ringing like a struck bell, and space itself warped around the point of impact, bending in ways that hurt the eye. Everyone raised their weapons to protect themselves, bracing against the glare. And from the center of the light appeared Zardock, with Gohan by his side. Gohan looked around at the shattered glass sky and the shadowless ground, and said with a slight smile, "Strange, I actually like this world. Look down there, they knew we were coming." "Their numbers are great," Zardock laughed lightly, unimpressed by the host arrayed below. "Are you afraid?" Gohan replied without hesitation, "No. On the contrary, I want to test my full power against Zardock or Elira." "Very well. I have no desire to waste their time. Come on, let's get rid of them." Gohan smiled. "There is an ability I haven't tested yet. I'm going to activate my slow-tracking eyes to fight freely."
Gohan's eyes turned a brilliant, fiery yellow, the color flooding through them until they blazed. The world around him seemed to slow, every motion of the enemy drawing itself out, easy to read. The angels raised their energy spears, the points gleaming. "They're here! Come on! Let's attack them together now!" The gods of destruction braced themselves, settling into their stances. But before anyone could give an order, Gohan vanished. He reappeared right in the center of the crowd in an instant and delivered a lightning-fast strike. A single blow sent the head of an angel flying high into the air, and only then did the others realize he had moved at all. Everyone froze in shock, but they quickly joined the fray, encircling him from all sides, closing in to bury him beneath their numbers. As for Gohan, he lunged into the midst of the crowd like a flash of light, vanishing and reappearing among the angels like a spark escaped from time itself. Every single movement was enough to shatter a body or completely erase an angel with a strike invisible to the naked eye. The armies attempted to surround him, to trap him in a closing ring, but Gohan snatched a spear from one of them and began striking them down, making them fall one by one without them ever understanding how. He tore through their ranks as if he were manipulating gravity itself, bending the flow of the battle around him. Meanwhile, inside the frozen palace, Elira slowly approached the gigantic being frozen upon his throne. His body was imprisoned within layers of eternal ice, yet his mere aura made breathing difficult, as if the air itself feared him and refused to enter the lungs of those who drew near. Elira raised her magical staff. A single touch to the throne unleashed a dense red light that spread through the ice, flowing along the cracks and seams like blood awakening a heart that had been asleep for millennia. The red light emanating from her staff gradually transformed into a celestial blue, the color shifting as it deepened, as if the throne were receiving a resuscitation of energy and regaining its true form, drawing breath after an age of stillness. Elira stepped back a few paces, and then even further, retreating across the hall as if she knew perfectly well that the coming moment would leave no room for the weak. The ice statue slammed his foot against the ground. The shockwave felt like an explosion born from the heart of a star. A murderous pressure wave rippled outward in every direction, sending everyone flying through the air like paper dolls, weightless before its force. Even Zeno, who was standing just a few meters away, was violently thrown back, tumbling through the air. The winds generated by the impact ripped half the planet apart in an instant, tearing the frozen world open. The palace vanished. Small neighboring planets vaporized like dust, gone before the light of their destruction could even spread.
As for the courtyard of golden green glass, it was propelled dozens of kilometers away before grinding to a halt, groaning as if in pain, the great glass plane shuddering under a force it was never meant to bear. Gohan stopped fighting, his veins trembling beneath his skin, the battle forgotten in an instant. Zardock raised his head, his narrow pupils dilating with genuine excitement for the first time as he stared in the direction of the destroyed palace. He has awakened. Nothing remained of the palace except its base, which had transformed from ice into golden glass, clear proof that his true power had dominated this frozen world for thousands of years, that the ice had only ever been a thin disguise over something far older.
Zeno shouted, and for the very first time his voice was thick with panic. "Don't look at him! You do not have permission to look at him!" But the warning came too late. In a terrifying display, shards of ice and gold began to fly through the air, scattering in every direction. Then the creature's true form appeared. He sat upon the throne like a forgotten king, a monstrous beast unfolding from within the wreckage. His broad shoulders and the muscles of his golden body gleamed with celestial light, the radiance flowing beneath his skin like fine, luminous threads. His face resembled Zeno's, but it was much harder and infinitely more frightening, every soft line replaced by something carved and merciless. A single glance was all it took. Those who were too close and hadn't heard Zeno's warning were instantly frozen into statues of solid gold. They didn't scream, they didn't move. Time simply stopped for them, caught them mid-breath. Then they crumbled into golden dust, scattering into the air and drifting away on the dying wind. Everyone remained silent. On the glass courtyard, Gohan felt for the first time that the real war hadn't even begun yet, that everything until now had been a prelude. And Zardock smiled and said, "My true battle is just getting started." While Goku was immersed in the healing capsule inside Bulma's lab, his body seemed to react faster than expected, as if his cells refused to wait for permission, refused to obey the timeline the machine had set for them. A sudden flash erupted in his mind. His entire past crashed into his brain all at once, a flood with no banks to hold it back. He saw himself transforming into mastered Ultra Instinct. He saw the moment he lost consciousness, the world going dark around him. He saw his war against the angel army and the gods of destruction, the endless ranks, the impossible odds. He saw the Grand Minister exiling him to the dark castle where he had tasted the worst, most unbearable torches the cosmos had to offer. Then the image of Gohan and Zardock piercing through the darkness to save him flashed vividly in his memory. The moment the light broke through, his body shook violently inside the liquid, the water churning around him, and his eyes snapped open, glowing. With a single strike, he shattered the capsule, the glass and water exploding outward, and fell to the floor, gasping for air, his hands pressed flat against the cold ground. Alarms began to blare everywhere, shrieking through the lab. The energy circulation was entirely abnormal, every reading climbing past the limits the machine could measure, as if Goku's body was awakening far ahead of schedule and dragging the whole system along with it. Bulma, who was near the lab, heard the alarms going off for no apparent reason and ran toward the sound. "What's going on? All the systems are activating on their own. No, this is impossible. The power readings are skyrocketing. Goku, please!" She ran into the room and her eyes widened in utter terror. Goku stood at the center of the laboratory. His body was engulfed in a brilliant celestial white fire, the flames licking upward without burning him, and his aura was scorching the ground around him, blackening the floor in a ring. Feeling a new power surging through him, filling him in ways he was only beginning to understand, Goku spoke. "It seems this transformation makes the body a bit bulkier. Well, I like it." Bulma asked with a trembling voice, "Goku, your appearance, you're still injured. How can you even stand? This is impossible."
Goku replied with a calm smile, as if none of it troubled him at all. "It looks like you built something even you didn't fully comprehend. My healing speed has doubled. And besides, don't forget that I'm a Saiyan." "But you needed 3 whole days to heal."